make sure that you are focusing on good nutrition. Your nutrition is just as important now as when you were pregnant, and possibly more so, because you've got to make sure it's good for you and you've got to make sure that it's good for your breastfeeding baby. But you have to take care of yourself. So high protein, nutrient dense stuff, lots of water, continue to take your prenatal vitamin, get outside every day, move your body. And that's how we start to hopefully see a shift. And if those things, if you're actually doing those things, and if you need help, somebody needs to force you to do those things in the beginning, but you're doing those things and it's not getting better, then it's time to reach out to somebody for help.
Getting pregnant and giving birth are two of the most exciting things you can ever hope to experience in this life. The moment you think you could be pregnant, you're frantically searching for all the best information, which is why you're here today. I'm Stephanie King, and with my many years of experience as a professional childbirth educator, doula, and lover of all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, I'm here to make preparing for your birth enjoyable, empowering, and totally easy. Each week, I'll cover different topics, interview professionals, and get into the nitty-gritty birth stories from mamas just like you. And when you're ready for more, you can join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I take you step by step through exactly how to prepare your mind, body, spirit, and partner for a birth you love. So let's get started.
All right. Our reviewer of the week is Maddie1212, who said, amazing unmedicated birth. I give this podcast credit for my amazing unmedicated birth experience. Education is key to an amazing birth experience, and this podcast provides it. I was unable to take the birth course by the time I found this podcast because I was already enrolled in another, but I learned more from this podcast than I did from that other birth course. I will definitely sign up for their birth course for my next pregnancy. Thank you so much for the time and effort you put into this podcast. Thank you so much, Maddie, for being here and for leaving your review. You guys, reviews are the lifeblood of this podcast. So if you have not left one yet, I know I've been encouraging that. Please do so for 2025. Head to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you go. But if it's Apple Podcasts, you just click that review all the way down at the bottom. You click on this podcast, head down to review, hit the stars, write the review, and send it in. I think I'm going to do some giveaways this year, actually, because we want to get those reviews boosted so that more moms get to see this podcast. And there's some great podcasts out there, so it's definitely a good problem that we are having, but we want to reach as many moms as possible. And so if you're loving what you hear on this podcast, please go do that for us. All right, this episode is going to be just a touch different than what we usually talk about. We are going to talk about some of the ways that postpartum can go sideways. So there are different things we're going to talk about, kind of like the physical, the emotional. There's different ways that postpartum cannot be exactly what you expected it to be, but that's what I want to dive into today. So it actually came up in our private Facebook My Essential Birth group, and it's true that postpartum isn't talked about enough. That was kind of something that somebody had a rough postpartum, and she was like, man, my birth was awesome, all of this wonderful stuff, and my postpartum was just rough. And somebody else had commented yes, I feel you, totally get what you're saying. And I'm like, okay, sounds like we need to talk about this just a touch. So absolutely, we go over postpartum in the course. You guys know I have postpartum topics here on the podcast. But what do we do when it goes a little bit sideways? So that's what we're here to discuss. So I know that these moms aren't alone. Even within the course, I'm sure that there are moms who've had rough postpartums, and maybe we don't talk about that enough. So I think it makes sense to chat about it here. I want you guys to know kind of what problems and things you should be looking for or aware of, and kind of what could potentially happen during those first couple of weeks and even the first couple of months of your postpartum period. Also, I have to give you just a little plug for the postpartum course. We do have a postpartum course. So if I'm talking about some topics here today, you're curious, you want to dive deeper, everything is within the postpartum course, except we go over it, much more in depth, and we go past a 6-week or a couple of month period. So all of that is in there. If you want to bundle and save, you can head to myessentialbirth.com/get started, all one word, and scroll down and kind of bundle them together, and you get even more awesome content. So you can do that there. All right. So after you give birth, I think it's easy to overlook some of the potential warning signs and stuff that's going on with mom, especially because we're all wrapped up in the baby and probably all the nuances of the baby. Is the baby sleeping? Are they eating? Are they pooping? Are they drinking enough? And sometimes it's easy to forget about our bodies. Like we're tired, we're sore because we gave birth. Like we don't know if it's normal or not. We just train wreck a little bit, right? Like it's a lot. And so you're just trying to like survive for a minute while also keeping another little human alive. And it's a lot to take in. But I think there are some things, I'm going to go over some of the like more serious things that are immediate that you need to be aware of, some things that we can catch right away, and then some of those that they might not be so easy to catch. So also think of it this way too, like baby is having some checkups along the way. So you give birth, your baby gets to see the pediatrician, week 1, week 2, they see them kind of right away. And if you have had a hospital birth, it's likely that you won't be seen again until your 6-week appointment, particularly if you're meeting with an OB. Maybe midwife group has you come back a little bit earlier. But if you're meeting with an OB, it really is the 6-week appointment, unless you have something else that comes up in the meantime, which I highly recommend. That if it seems like there's going to be an issue at all, if you're having questions about anything, that you do that you reach out and you ask for help. That's what they're there for. That's what we pay them for, right? So definitely go and do that. But let's talk about these 3 big warning signs that you need to be aware of. Well, what they are and the warning signs for them. And then I'm going to go into the more common, but maybe not so often talked about postpartum issues that we see. So number 1, physical, right? Your postpartum hemorrhage might be one of those. So this is excessive vaginal bleeding and the most common, serious, and immediate postpartum complication. And it can occur up to 12 weeks postpartum, which is probably not what you would think to hear. You're thinking first week, maybe first couple hours, depending, right? But if you are soaking through your usual pads each hour for more than 2 hours, it's time to call your provider and be prepared to head into the office or the hospital to get checked out. But if you're experiencing any of the following, I want you to call 911 or go to the hospital immediately. And so this is one of those episodes, you guys, I want you to like save this one, download it, whatever, have it so that you're like, I am going to file this stuff away postpartum, at least for this beginning stuff. And you can come back and be like, actually, that's not normal. And here's what I'm looking for, which they should give you stuff from the hospital too, but a whirlwind, right? So we're going to prepare beforehand. But if you have constant bleeding from the vagina that doesn't stop or slow down, if you have blurred vision, chills and or feeling faint, all of that could be signs of postpartum hemorrhage. Now, the immediate stuff, when you're in the hospital or your birth team is dealing with you, they will deal with that at the time. That's where we get into like, what medications do we need to stop it? Pitocin, Cytotec, whatever, using a piece of the placenta, however they decide to do that, herbs. But this can occur later, so keep an eye on that. So the postpartum bleeding is normal. An excessive amount and consistent amount is not. Now, postpartum preeclampsia, this is caused by high blood pressure, and it's a sign that your organs might not be working properly. This condition is common during pregnancy, but some women also experience it following the birth of their baby. So it's something that you need to keep an eye on. It usually occurs a few days after giving birth, but it can occur up to 6 weeks postpartum. So make sure you call your doctor right away if you experience the following symptoms: blood pressure higher than 140/90, changes in your vision. This could be blurring, light sensitivity, seeing spots, things like that. If you have a headache that won't go away, shortness of breath, swelling in your face or hands, pain in the shoulder or abdominal or belly area. It's usually in the upper right side, but it can be anywhere. Nausea or vomiting and or sudden weight gain. You're looking at like 2 to 3 pounds or more in a week. That can all be signs that you're having an issue. These are signs of postpartum preeclampsia, so make sure that you reach out to your provider. Postpartum endometritis. Now, I had to learn about this stuff while I was creating the postpartum program, because some of these things I had heard of and dealt with, and then others I hadn't, and this is one of them. So you guys get to learn too. This is an infection in the lining of the uterus. So I guess I didn't know the name for this, but bacteria can obviously get into the uterus during childbirth. It's not that this is necessarily super common. It's just that it can happen, but it can cause infections like this. So this condition usually happens around 2 to 10 days after birth, but it can develop for up to 6 weeks after childbirth. If it goes untreated, then it can cause further medical conditions and complications. So you want to make sure and call your doctor right away if you experience any of the following that I'm going to list right now: fever or chills, feeling tired or sick, sensations of abdominal pain or tenderness, or unusually foul-smelling vaginal discharge. So if you can't get in touch with your healthcare provider, you want to make sure to head to an ER, make sure to tell them you had your baby so many times ago, you're experiencing these issues, have somebody check you out. I mean, you can definitely worry about like urgent care and stuff like that. But I always say, like, if you can't get a hold of your provider, you can call the hospital and ask the on-call nurse questions, and they'll tell you either come in or head to urgent care or something like that. Same thing, you can call urgent care and they can tell you head here, head to the ER. They're pretty good about that, being able to tell you at least where to go for the help that it sounds like you need over the phone without diagnosing you or anything like that. Now, those are the most common and biggest scary ones, but they're not all of them. For example, if you have issues with your cesarean and the incision site or something like that, or there's baby blues and postpartum depression and things, that's kind of the emotional, mental side of things, and I want to get into that a little bit more. But those are the immediate physical ones that you can be concerned about or like be looking for. And then now you know what those signs are, which as I was reading those, I hope you're like, yeah, if I'm noticing any of those things, that tells me something's off. It's a little bit more than just recovering from postpartum, that there is something going on there, like especially like fever and chills or heavy bleeding. But pay attention to those things because sometimes we do ignore them when we're just in the throes of new motherhood. But I included those at the beginning of the episode so that if I have a postpartum mom who is newly postpartum, up in the middle of the night, nursing with the baby and all that, and just struggling with her body, that she's looking for something postpartum and reads that, she's like, oh, okay, that's actually me. So let's move past that now. The rest of this is going to be for those more common things that moms experience and even struggle with postpartum, but that don't necessarily mean it's time to head back into the hospital, but it does still mean that there's healing ahead. So you may be really tired while you and your baby and even your partner are figuring out feeding and sleeping routines and just having a new life in your home. You may be enjoying resting and relaxing and cuddling your newborn, or maybe you're dying to get out and have some social interactions with others. You might be getting tons of books to read and shows watched that you've been storing up for when your baby's here and you're nursing in the middle of the night. Or maybe you're giving your partner the death stare as you're up for the 5th time with a crying baby and you're nursing again and he's happily snoring away. You never know. So in other words, I think motherhood is just an adjustment, and it's going to be an adjustment for your entire family. So it's okay to feel uncertain and happy and scared and tired and elated and absolutely in love all at the same time. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. I also want to tell you to remember that you are strong, that you are capable, and you are the perfect mother for your baby. So as much crazy as it all feels right now, you're going to get your feet back under you and you're going to move forward and be doing all the right things very soon. So don't stress. It will all fall into place, even if it's a rough start. So some other things that mom can experience that aren't as serious or life-threatening, even though they feel like they might really be. Let's get into those. Some pain downstairs. And I can say some, or it can be a lot. But if you tore, or if things are just really swollen, if there are hemorrhoids involved, whether or not you had them before you pushed your baby out, depending on how long you pushed for, how long was baby in the birth canal, all of that can leave things really swollen and stressed downstairs. And then you add that on top of maybe not sleeping super well because you're up nursing a baby every couple hours, especially in the beginning, and without, decent rest and all that, and just time, it can be a little rough. And so walking around can be painful. Sitting down can be painful. Using the bathroom can be really frustrating. And so let's talk about some of the things that you can do to kind of heal and ease some of that area. So if this sounds like you, with or without stitches, you can immediately start doing sitz baths. So remember that you're going to be bleeding, and that's normal. So there will be blood in the water, and that's normal. But a sitz bath is just a really hot, hip-high bath. You do not want hot water up where your abdomen is because you are bleeding, and part of what you are bleeding from is the placenta that detached. And so you have a wound that is healing, and so you don't want to increase the blood flow to that area and cause more bleeding. So all of the heat happens very low, hip height at the most, but you're just going enough that you can sit in it and your entire bottom vaginal area is covered with hot water. Now, to that hot water, you can add Epsom salt. You should at least add Epsom salt. You can also add baking soda and maybe even a couple little drops of a lavender essential oil or something like that. But you just sit directly in it and you wait until the water cools. So it should be like mildly uncomfortable. You're not looking to burn yourself or anything, but it should be pretty warm water. And then you wait for it to cool. And once it cools, then you have your like underwear with your nice big pad and cool pack or perineal spray or whatever you have next to you, so that when you get out, you can pat off and get that right back on. Perineal sprays are great. They have them that have colloidal silver, lavender, witch hazel, just something that is cool and soothing and healing that you can put on before you put that pad on. Because after you have a baby, no matter how soft anything is made, everything is going to just kind of feel like sandpaper downstairs. So knowing that, you want to get the softest thing possible, spray it all down. Moisture can feel really good. And then kind of like put that all against yourself. Essential oils that are great down there is like tea tree, lavender, coconut, just something that is soothing and healing and light. Now, if you are healing from an episiotomy or from tearing in general, there can be pain or infection, or it's just uncomfortable as things heal. So things that can help with making sure to not have an infection are things like the sitz bath or a perineal spray, like spraying down the area with like the peri bottle, or just running water over that area as a way to, like, after you urinate or defecate, so we can like clean that up before just using wipes down there. That can be really helpful. Tux pads, that kind of stuff. But if you can clean that area at least once a day, or do a sitz bath, or, rinse off in the shower, then that can be really helpful in making sure that we avoid infection. Using the bathroom can be a little rough. I talked about this, but especially pooping. Like, here's the thing. You pushed a baby out, so you feel like you should be able to conquer the world. And if you can push that, however many pounds things out, then pooping out the back door should just be a breeze. But sometimes it just isn't. And especially after pushing out a baby, everything is just like swollen and it's a little rough down there. Don't take a mirror unless you're really curious, and then just know that it all goes back. So if you want to traumatize yourself, by all means, go looking. I didn't do it. I couldn't do it. I think maybe with my third I looked, but it was not immediate. I waited like a good week or something. But I knew by that time, like, it's all going to go back. So especially for those number twos, squatty potties, or you can put laundry baskets next to you, or yoga blocks on either side of your foot. If you can get into a squatted position, it will make it easier. Also, using some kind of laxative, whether that's like a natural, you're going to have a lot of prunes, or use psyllium husks, or my favorite is magnesium citrate. Postpartum, if you can get your hands on a good magnesium citrate, that will help. Just like everything's going to come out smoothly. If you're having issues urinating postpartum, you're just afraid to do it, or you like can't get the sensation, we say drop a couple of drops of peppermint essential oil into the toilet, and that can be really helpful. On top of that, we've got some abdominal pain. So with everything that's happening downstairs, abdominal pain, it's so interesting. I feel like nobody talks about the emptiness and soreness and weak feeling that you have there. It's like that baby is out, and then it just, all your muscles had given up and ran out the door with it. So it feels really good to do some postpartum belly binding. So you guys have heard me talk about this. I've even given belly binds away before, or as part of the program, because I just want you guys to have them, and I think that they're amazing. But I've used the Malaysian Bengkung binds, and I think we're making some more, so I might have those up again soon. But once you have that baby, it's like everything's empty. Like, you go to like hiccup or cough or like use your abs in any way, sit up, and you're like, oh my gosh, why do I feel so weak now when I didn't even when the baby was in? It's a different kind of weak feeling, and things, just emptiness. And so when you do a bind, particularly the Bengkung binds are the ones I really like, because they pull things in just perfectly tight. But if you can't get that, you just do like a Velcro bind online. I'll link some in the show notes. But when you do that, it just feels like this like big hug, but it's also very supporting. So it just gives you something to like push against, push against, whether you're sitting up or coughing or whatever. So that is something, I don't think anything prepares you for it. And I don't think me telling you about it is going to do it any justice until you experience it, kind of like birth. So just know that it's something that can happen. Breastfeeding is another one. And so sometimes moms are experiencing the like bleeding, cracked, dry nipples. Sometimes it's just a matter of trying to get baby to latch. Sometimes you just need a tool to help you, something like a nipple shield or something else. And it can just be a little tricky in the beginning, trying to get baby to latch, trying to get them to latch well, having people tell you certain things that may or may not be true, like tongue tie or lip tie, or they're getting what they need or they're not getting what they need. So it can be a little tricky in the beginning. Here is my very best recommendation. If things are not just perfectly smooth, which sometimes they really are, they really can go that way. But if things aren't, and if you're worried at all, you have any concerns at all, reach out to an IBCLC. That is an international board certified lactation consultant. They are able to help you over the phone. They are able to help you in person. And by over the phone, I usually mean like Zoom. I feel like that's going to be a better match, which 2020, that was one thing it did wonderful for us. We got a lot of IBCLCs working with moms over the phone like that. But that is the person that you want checking things out, helping you along the way, answering your questions, helping things to get set up well, because they give you, like, lactation consultants exist in the hospitals, for example, but the amount of hours that they work and the issues that they see, it just is not the same. And I don't mean the amount of hours that they're working at the hospital. The amount of training hours that they've had is very minimal. It's the same with your pediatrician. If you go to your pediatrician for breastfeeding help, they are not the person. They're not going to be able to help you like an IBCLC will. And so it's why they have formula in their offices. It's why when they can't help, they recommend formula. That's just their training. It's what they know to do. But if you deal with an IBCLC, they have thousands of hours that are required, and they have dealt with many hundreds of women, and they are so good at what they do. And so if you can afford it or make it happen, hire yourself one. And if you can't, you head to a La Leche League meeting. The Leche League is always free. It's always friendly. And a lot of times the leader of that group is an IBCLC. So they're not working under that, like they're not giving you information as I am your IBCLC person, but they are providing information for moms in a group setting. And it's often, it's the same information they would give you if they were your client. So I think that is a really, really great place to go. The other thing about it is you're meeting with other moms. So it's just like a place where other moms come, breastfeeding moms, and they all come together and they talk about their issues and they help each other work through them. So then you feel like you're not alone, you're building community. And then you have leadership that is also helping to make sure that whatever issues you're having are getting resolved. I think every mom should go anyways. Like you have wisdom to offer if you're not having issues. You have wisdom to offer if you are having issues, and you have help to be gained all along the way. So please, please, please head to a La Leche League meeting near you. And you can find one by going to LLLI.org, which is LaLecheLeagueInternational.org. They will, and they're usually, they have them at hospitals. Sometimes they meet at churches. It just depends about your area, but you should have one locally to you. And if not, they do have local Facebook chapters. So you can always connect that way. Now, if you're dealing with postpartum stuff, so let's chat about mood disorders for a sec. What about baby blues versus postpartum depression? So baby blues start shortly after birth and usually resolve within a few weeks, like 1 to 2 weeks. So oftentimes after mom has her baby, around day 3, we have this like massive drop of hormone. And there's a lot of things happening, but it's one of the things that triggers your breast going from colostrum to regular milk. And so but this trigger of this drop in hormones can also create what are known as baby blues. And so this is like weepiness or crying for no apparent reason, impatience, irritability, restlessness, anxiety, fatigue, insomnia. Even when the baby's sleeping, you can't sleep, sadness, mood changes, poor concentration. Those can all be part of the baby blues. But the kicker is they last a couple weeks. If you are still experiencing some of these things past those 2 weeks, now we're moving into postpartum mood disorders or postpartum depression. So there are different things that can look like. Postpartum depression would obviously be the like sad, weepy. There's also postpartum anxiety. There's postpartum anger. And so if you're noticing some of these mood changes and they're sticking around and they're becoming a little bit more intense or they're just not going away, then that's when we want to pay attention to them. But it's all kind of the same thing that we recommend to begin with before jumping straight to medication. And that is to get outside for 20 minutes a day. So you need to walk and move your body. You need to be out in the sun, even if it's cold, even if it's foggy, even if it's overcast and cloudy. You need to be out in the sun or outside in the real air and real light for about 20 minutes. And you can walk during that time. So you want to get a little bit of physical movement as well. Make sure that you are drinking enough. Make sure that you are eating enough protein. It is so easy to focus on our baby and then throw all of our good eating and stuff out the door, maybe in part because you're like, yes, I've been waiting to have, whatever you were not eating when you were pregnant with your baby, whether it's like sweets or deli meat or whatever you've decided to do. And you're just like, I'm going to do all the things, or a bunch of bread or whatever. I don't know. But make sure that you are focusing on good nutrition. Your nutrition is just as important now as when you were pregnant, and possibly more so, because you've got to make sure it's good for you and you've got to make sure that it's good for your breastfeeding baby. But you have to take care of yourself. So high protein, nutrient dense stuff, lots of water, continue to take your prenatal vitamin, get outside every day, move your body. And that's how we start to hopefully see a shift. And if you're actually doing those things, and if you need help, somebody needs to force you to do those things in the beginning, but you're doing those things and it's not getting better, then it's time to reach out to somebody for help. And again, I'm going to tell you to not necessarily head back just to your OB. Their training for postpartum mood stuff is very minimal. They are trained surgeons and they're very good at it. They are trained pregnancy and birth and they're very good at it. When it comes to mood disorders, they give you a handout. It's the Edinburgh scale test, and you mark how you're feeling about certain things. And then they decide if you maybe need a prescription for medication or not. And I have found both personally and professionally that is not the best place to go when you're actually in need of help. Finding a postpartum specialist, finding a postpartum counselor, somebody that can kind of walk you through what is normal for postpartum and new motherhood and kind of how to navigate that and how you're feeling. All of that is going to come from one of those people that I mentioned. So make sure that you're reaching out for help in the right places. But some things to look for in regards to postpartum depression. I mentioned, the kind of moods, but you can be extremely sad or angry without warning. That this was me, by the way. Seem foggy or have trouble completing tasks. Also me. I feel like I'm going to raise my hand to all these. Appear robotic, like you're just going through the motions. You ever have a day where you're just like, I don't even know how I got to where I am in this part of the day and I got nothing. What did I even do today? You're just robotic. You're very anxious around the baby and other children, like having other people around your baby, just all the anxieties that you can imagine. I remember for myself, I would at night, I would imagine, I'm like, okay, if somebody comes in through the door, I'd take the baby and go here, or I do this. But if they come in through the back door, and I would just run through all these things and I couldn't fall asleep. I didn't know at the time that was postpartum anxiety, but it was. So if you find yourself doing those kinds of things, you can't fall asleep within 20 minutes of trying to fall asleep and baby sleeping and you should be able to sleep. Those are signs of anxiety. And so just pay attention to those. There is stuff that you could do. There's help to be had. But if you have little interest in doing things that you used to enjoy, if you're feeling guilty and you feel like you're failing at motherhood, if you have scary, upsetting thoughts that don't go away, or you have thoughts of hurting yourself, intrusive thoughts, that can be the signs of postpartum psychosis. It does not mean that you are a danger to your baby. It doesn't mean that you're going to do anything terrible necessarily. It just means that it's a little further down the line and you need some more professional help. If you have feelings of or symptoms of sadness or anxiety or hopelessness, if you've lost interest in activities or you withdraw from family and friends, if those are the things that are happening, if your first line of defense is your healthcare provider, then that's who you call. You need to reach out to somebody. And I'm also going to tell you to reach out to some kind of specialist or counselor that deals with these things, because it's going to be a better match for you. But if you do need immediate support, there is a phone number that you can call and talk to somebody right away. It's 24 hours. And I'm going to put it here, 1-800-944-4773. So that is another resource that you can use as well. Now, what about when your birth isn't what you imagined, even if you did all the things? This is kind of the other side of things. This is when you've listened to all the podcasts and you've done all the recommended things. You've read all the books. You've envisioned your perfect birth for the last 9 months. And you've only filled yourself with all the best birth stories. And your birth goes sideways. It is not what you imagined. It's not what you hoped for. It's not what you prepared for. And since you did all the right things, there's really no reason that you should have ended up here. And it is upsetting. You're like, how come I had, a super long labor and it was really painful, even though I tried all the positions? And how come I'm postpartum 3 weeks out, and because my tearing was so bad, or, pushing lasted so long, I'm unable to do things that just the basic daily life things. That can really be a stumbling block for moms. And if that is you, I want to tell you that you're not alone. And I also want to offer some advice. I actually reached out to the women that were talking in the Facebook group about how their postpartum was hard. And as I was talking with them, I'm like, this necessitates an entirely separate episode than why I reached out to them. So I think we'll have something coming where I want moms to talk a little bit about postpartum in a gentle way, but also one that illustrates like, hey, if it's not perfect, you don't have to feel alone or like you did anything wrong. And here's some things that helped me along the way so that you can not feel alone and also find some ways to heal. But I do think it can start with sharing our birth stories. Now, you know how I feel about positive birth stories and the importance of listening to them and having your own. You need to be able to share your birth story no matter how it turned out, and you need to be validated in how you felt and what you experienced, no matter what that looked like for you. So if you are a mom that had a harder either birth and or postpartum, then we need to make sure that you have an opportunity to tell that story, but we want it to be in the right setting. So, of course, if this is you, don't go chatting with other pregnant moms and tell them all the crazy, like really hard stuff that you walked through. That's probably not the appropriate setting. There are ways to talk about them about, postpartum was harder for me than I had expected it to be. So here's some things that I recommend in case, whatever. But definitely be careful about how we tell those stories. But I would find other postpartum moms and talk about your situation, because it's funny, in speaking with these moms over the past couple of days, one of the things that was brought up, one of the struggles was I felt so isolated because everyone's telling their positive birth stories. Everybody's talking about the good stuff that they've experienced. And here I was feeling like I had tried to do all the right things and that was not my experience. And I just felt so alone. And I had told her, it's so interesting because I've been on this mission to make sure, because what I have noticed over the years, and I know still does happen quite a bit, is that women get together and they tell their birth stories, but they tell them like, it's just everybody's topping the other's worst experience. And I've shared before that like that is their way to heal from it. Like they needed to tell their story, but it's happening in the wrong setting. And so now we've got this flip of like, now moms who have had rough experiences don't feel comfortable telling their birth story because all the moms are telling their good birth story anyway. So we've like flipped it. And I was saying, it's funny how that happens. We need to have balance. We need to have we need to hear the good, and we need to hear when it's not so good so that the people that had the good can comfort those and back and forth. And the people that had it hard can comfort each other too. We just have to be better about it. And so I love that we have this opportunity to do that here, but you need to meet with postpartum moms. And that's why I say La Leche League, right? Head to places like that where you can go and nurse together or talk with other moms about their experiences, and figure out that you're not alone, and it's okay to like have an out and talk about that. Now, if you find yourself that you're on constant repeat about the negative things that have happened and you can't slow it down, you can't stop it, you can't stop talking about it, part of that is a trauma response. And that is why it's really important to reach out to somebody that can help, like a counselor, a specialist, or somebody. You definitely don't want to be putting all of the like heavy burden on it on somebody else, but talking about it openly and being validated and hearing other women's experiences is actually very healing. So along with that would be like journaling, reminding yourself that it's for a moment, this too shall pass. Like you will come to a place shortly, in the scheme of things, right? Like it might take months, but shortly, soon, that you'll be able to look back on this and it'll just be a moment in time. It won't be all consuming and take over all of your thought process and feelings and all of that kind of stuff. The other advice I got from these moms was, if you think something is wrong before that 6-week appointment, call, check in, ask for help, go back in, have them check you out again. You do not have to wait for the 6 weeks. You can if all things are going well and you're comfortable and fine doing that. But if you feel like something's going on, or if you're like, I just want to be checked out earlier, schedule the appointment. You can do it. So make sure that you're reaching out for help when you feel like you need it. And then the other thing is to understand that postpartum healing, Well, it should be much better by 6 weeks. You're not healed. You're not completely back to normal by any means at 6 weeks. Maybe you can resume some of your normal activities, and maybe you're getting a touch more sleep and you're kind of getting into the groove of life and things. Of course, baby will throw you for a loop shortly after that anyways, but maybe you're feeling like a little bit more normal. But it's okay if like full healing doesn't happen for a couple of months. And what I mean by that is not that you're having like serious issues where you need help, but realizing it's okay to still be gentle with yourself, 6, 8, 12, however many weeks down the line. So remember, listen to your body, trust your intuition, use your resources. As I'm always saying, use those people that you have around you. That includes your birth partner, that includes your family, your local community, your providers, and then reaching out to any specialists that you need. And that can include pelvic floor therapy, occupational therapy, counseling. See what things are available for free, like hooking up with moms with like the Leche League or a postpartum group that is near you. There's postpartum support groups, even if you just like Google postpartum support group. I don't know if near me would be the one, maybe on a Facebook, like a postpartum support group, and put in your city or state or whatever. But just finding local moms in the area and kind of connecting and hooking up. Now, I'm sure that was a lot. I know postpartum can feel a little overwhelming. And as I'm saying all of this, I do want this to be a resource for you, but I don't want you to dwell on any of it or stress too much about it. There's a good chance you're going to have just a wonderful experience. And if you experience some of these struggles along the way, which can be part of even a wonderful experience, I hope you have something that you can come back to and reference now. Remember that it's a very vulnerable time. Postpartum is extremely vulnerable, just like labor and birth was. And so you want to make sure that you are surrounding yourself with the right people. And I hope, I hope that includes me. Like if you are really struggling and going through it, I've had moms that have reached out, like, we are here to help you. No, I am not a counselor or anything like that, but I can listen and I can help direct you in the right way. So if you're really just feeling lost and like, I don't know where to start, and it's just the overwhelm of it, go ahead and reach out. You can reach us at hello@myessentialbirth or connect with me at myessentialbirth on Instagram, of course, anytime. But I just want to remind you, all of you, that you're incredible. Don't forget to take care of yourself postpartum. Don't forget to take care of yourself right now, wherever you're at on your journey. And when you are feeling well and you've experienced and kind of walked through some of this stuff, reach out and help another mom, because that's what we're doing. We're here to build community and to love on one another. So I will see you guys next week.
If you loved what you heard today, the very best way to support this podcast and help other moms to find it is to leave a quick review. I read one at the beginning of the episodes, and I would love for yours to be next. And if you're ready for even more pregnancy, birth, and postpartum goodness, come join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I will hold your hand and walk you through pregnancy and birth step by step so you're totally prepared for a birth you'll love. See you next week.